Its inventors call it the WebBot Project. It began in the late 1990s as a program to predict possible stock futures.
And next hour, web technology that forecasts the future. Kind of like a time machine.
Basic concept is that all humans are psychic in some degree, just the way all humans are short or tall in some degree. And whether they know it or not, they're leaking out some of their psychic impression in their particular choice of words in casual everyday conversations, including those conversations that are expressed on the internet.
Another guest tonight is Cliff. Cliff was on with me about 3 years ago, a little more than that. He's got a patent on a computer-assisted reading technology, which allows reading from computer screens at up to 2,000 some words per minute.
And that we are able, with software that goes out and reads such conversations, to gather in all of these millions of psychic impressions, boil them down to a thick syrupy mass, and skim the top of it for forecasts.
He's been developing a system of software internet agents and other proprietary processing methods to predict future events. The software project began in 1997, captures near real-time changes in language patterns within internet discussions, and then employing a very radical linguistic technique of his own, he developed a model which anticipates future events with some incredible accuracy. Here's an example. Since June of 2001, remember that date now, 2001, when the work projected a major tipping point that is a life-changing event with aspects of military and accident that would forever change the way we live to occur inside 90 days. The WebBot project has continued to give descriptors of future events such as the anthrax attack in Washington, the crash of American 587, the Columbia disaster, the Northeast power outage, earthquakes, and recently a flooding of the Red River.
And I first heard about Cliff in June of 2001 when I got an email from a wacky friend of mine. I guess all my friends are wacky. A friend of mine who said, look at this. So I read it, and I read about the program, and so it seemed kind of interesting. And then he said, here's what I'm reading. I'm reading that in the late summer, here's the emotional words I'm reading. High-rise buildings, airplanes, bombs, terrorists, many die. So I thought, wow, I wonder what that means. So, I put it aside, and then 911 happened. So now I was paying attention to this guy. So in 2005, he came out with the next alert, and he said, flood, southern city, many die, big storm, high winds. So I said, okay. And then Katrina happened. So now I've got his stuff on my wall, and I'm watching him now. So he's been right about 20 straight times.
However it works, the WebBot's track record is impressive.
August 2004, we made a prediction about earthquakes. We predicted 300,000 dead, the water rising, which turned out to be the tsunami in December of 2004.
The WebBots also foretold the anthrax attacks in Washington, D.C. in 2001, the massive East Coast power outage of 2003, the destruction of Hurricane Katrina in 2005.
But about a year ago, he came up and he said, I'm getting the biggest reading ever. And it's saying October 6, 2009, or 2008. So, I put it on my wall, and all my friends are watching Cliff and seeing what's going to happen in the world. And that was the height of the crash. That October 6 was the height when we were at the worst. So now, everybody in the know, and you guys are now in the know, is paying attention to Cliff. We want to know what he's finding, right, in the next few years.
In terms of accuracy, I always say that we're twice what chance would allow, but that of course means we're still wrong half the time. And that's rather a misleading statement, and I don't do that deliberately to mislead, but for those people whose monkey minds want to deal with numbers, it gives them a fair approximation of where we're at. We're about 51 or 52% right in the main, if you wanted to look at it as a sheer number of words that are actually matched up.
When we're wrong, we're just merely miss it. but when we get it, we're usually pretty spectacular. So in a sense, it's kind of like being able to pick up words that are going to end up in the public domain, that is the public consciousness, coming in from what we call the global media stream in advance.
At an archetype level, it's extremely accurate. But as we drill down towards the details, only occasionally are we extremely accurate at the detail level, but when we are, it can be spectacularly accurate in the sense that we had the number 300,000 dead show up 8 months before the tsunami. And by all accounts, it was around that number that were killed. We had the Northeast power outage here in the U.S., which was a big deal. It was not determined to be terrorism or anything, but we had a huge amount of the words around that 3 weeks out, and we were about 92% or more of the linguistics that we forecast actually showed up in the mainstream media that day and the following day about the event. And that's actually how we judge our success, by the way. Because what we seem to get is not a description of an event in the future, but rather a leaking out of humans as to what those words will be used to describe that event shortly after it's happened. I want to make it clear that in the case of the Northeast power outage, one of the first words we had was terrorism. And it was determined not to be a terrorist event, but that didn't matter, because on everybody's lips, in the instance that the power was lost all through the northeast part of the United States, instantly everybody thought it was a terrorist act. So that also showed up in the media. So we got that word accurately, even though in fact the event had nothing to do with terrorism.